Xiaomi 15 Ultra is the latest Android flagship phone with a crazy large 1-inch main sensor. On the other hand, we have the iPhone 16 Pro Max, which is one of the top Apple offerings. I was very curious about how these two phones compare to each other, so I decided to spend a full day with both of them to test battery life, camera, and software. I am Mo, and I bought both of these phones with my own money. Here in Europe, they both roughly cost the same. With the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, you arguably get a better hardware. The screen is a slightly curved 12-bit panel. On the back of the device, you get 4 lenses, a 1-inch main camera, and 2 capable telephoto lenses, one of them the same size as the iPhone's telephoto lens, and the other much larger. The iPhone 16 Pro Max comes with dynamic island. On the back of the device, you get 3 cameras, and this is the last generation. We will see the iPhone in this design. I charge both phones to 100%. The Xiaomi is always on the left side of the screen, and the iPhone on the right. They both have bright displays and get pretty lit on the sunlight. For the sake of the test, I set both of them to the same brightness level. I decided to go to the center of Vienna to enjoy this awesome weather. As you know, since Vienna is in the southern hemisphere, our spring and autumn are reversed. In this ultra-wide shot, the colors are a bit different on both phones, and I personally prefer the zoom shift on the iPhone compared to the sudden punch on the Xiaomi. I also played YouTube while on the train for a bit. For low-light video with the main lens, I can see the Xiaomi has a slight edge in the footage due to the better and larger sensor. The picture and the ultra-wide lens are pretty close, except for the fact that the Xiaomi has more of a magenta tone, while the iPhone has more greens. Also, the iPhone's ultra-wide lens is a tad wider than the Xiaomi's, so you can fit more into the frame. For the sake of transparency, I'm using Leica Authentic mode for the entirety of the video. Other than that, I kept most of the settings on default on both the iPhone and Xiaomi. For video with the ultra-wide lens, I do feel that the Xiaomi footage is sharper but also a tad more overexposed. I also prefer the colors on the Xiaomi. With the main lens, they are pretty close, and again, I find the Xiaomi's colors closer to reality. So one thing about the Xiaomi 15 Ultra is that it also has a dual recording mode that I can take a selfie video. At the same time, I can also take a normal video. And don't ask me what Tanya is doing here. Also, if you notice on the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, the background is a bit more blur. That's because of the larger sensor compared to iPhone 16 Pro. One I think about the Xiaomi 15 Ultra is the photography kit, which also allows you to attach filters to your phone. On the other hand, the iPhone has a magnetic back, which means you can attach power banks without a case to charge your phone. For the Xiaomi, that won't be possible. The only way to attach a wireless power bank is to get a case for the phone. But on the bright side, the Xiaomi offers a much better charging speed, which brings us to today's sponsor, Sharge. The Sharge Retractable 65 is a travel-friendly charger with a neat transparent design in black and white. It charges your device at up to 65 watts. The cable is tucked neatly into the charger, so you don't need to carry a separate cable around. The super cool thing about it is that you can attach 2 devices to it. For example, you can connect your phone with a retraceable cable and use another cable to charge your MacBook at the same time. It also has an EU adapter installed, but you can remove it to make it compatible with US plugs. I love Sharge products and use their power banks and chargers daily in my YouTube studio to charge my laptop and camera. They never let me down. I've put the product links down below. Thanks to Sharge for sponsoring this video. Back to the camera comparison, as I mentioned, the Xiaomi has an extra lens compared to the iPhone. With the main lens, the Xiaomi creates better bokeh since the sensor is larger, but at the same time, the highlights are a bit overblown. Also, the Xiaomi has a 3x telephoto lens, whereas on the iPhone, the 3x zoom is a cropped image from the main sensor. Therefore, the Xiaomi photo has much more quality. You can also use the 3x telephoto lens on the Xiaomi for macro photography, while on the iPhone, you kind of need to use the 5x zoom, but the details won't be there. With 5x zoom, the Xiaomi again has a larger sensor, which creates a better shallow depth of field. On the other hand, the highlights on Tanya's face are better managed on the iPhone. I also asked Tanya herself what she thinks about the photos.
So the main thing I see is that there's a much bigger contrast in colors. I mean, I look like a Victorian sick child here, whereas this is more saturated. But with this one, I stand out from the background more.
And she pretty much nailed it. Xiaomi pictures, for one, are more contrasty compared to the iPhone and also have a bit of a unique tone to the skin, especially on my skin tone. I do feel the Xiaomi creates a more orange tint, while the iPhone looks more natural. Another thing is that highlights are often overblown on the Xiaomi, whereas they are better managed on the iPhone. That said, the Xiaomi on both the telephoto and main lens creates better bokeh due to the large sensor, and it is one of the only phones where I don't feel the need to use portrait mode. Also, regarding highlights, you can fix them to an extent in post. For example, here I brought the highlights down to -90 in Lightroom, shadows to -10, I made a few small adjustments. Now, the Xiaomi 15 Ultra photo looks more similar to the iPhones, but with better details and more bokeh. If we zoom in, the Xiaomi picture is more detailed and less noisy too. For video, if you want to achieve a shallow depth of field with a pro camera like my Sony FX30, you have to use a faster lens. On the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, you have to use movie mode to create an artificial bokeh. The problem I found is that I cannot change the frame rate or the resolution, and I'm stuck with 20 frames per second and HD. The iPhone gives you the option to change those settings in cinematic mode, but on the other hand, the colors are very off, and I'm not a big fan of it. In general, I personally prefer not to use cinematic mode, especially on the Xiaomi, since you can simply separate your subject from the background if you want to create a natural bokeh. You can also use portrait mode on both phones to enhance the background blur even more. Here, the Xiaomi algorithm works slightly better, while the iPhone is too aggressive in cutting tiniest hair. For stabilization in video, they perform very similarly to each other. It is a bit more difficult to stabilize a larger sensor. Another thing is that the Xiaomi 15 Ultra has a bit of focus breathing problem when the subject moves past you, and I've observed this in other tests as well. We went outside to a French cafe for lunch. Right now, the Xiaomi is 5% behind the iPhone. I put both phones to play YouTube videos on the side while the food was being prepared. Interestingly, for indoor photos, the Xiaomi does not have overblown highlights issues. Here, I took this food picture in authentic mode on the Xiaomi. The next photo is taken in Leica Vibrant mode, which is even more contrasty than Leica Authentic with punchy colors. Both phones also perform very well with the ultra-wide lens, but in general, it is better to avoid using this lens in low-light conditions. Before going outside, the Xiaomi 15 Ultra had 81% battery left, while the iPhone 16 Pro Max was at 87%. That Xiaomi's overexposed photos look better in overcast situations. Also, the zoom lens captures more details, and the algorithm reconstructs the missing information nicely. The iPhone's max zoom is capped at 25 times, while the Xiaomi can go as far as your heart desires. In general, it is much more pleasant to use the telephoto lens on the Xiaomi compared to the iPhone, and the iPhone 16 Pro Max has one of the weakest telephoto lenses among flagship phones. Also, it is fun to use the Xiaomi to capture things you can't even see with your own eyes. As you can see on the clock, it is 3:30, and I took the train back home. I wanted to take more pictures, but it didn't stop raining. On my way home, I took some more macro shots with a 3x telephoto lens on the Xiaomi, but the overblown highlights slightly ruined the pictures. In this edited picture, despite my best effort, I still could not revive some highlights in the image. If someone from Xiaomi is watching this video, please tell your development team to set the highlights to -20. When I got home, the Xiaomi had 69% battery left, nice, and the iPhone had 70% battery left. I played some YouTube, and by the end of it, both had 66% battery left. Temperature-wise, they were the same. In general, neither of them has thermal issues based on my experience. The Xiaomi is running HyperOS, which sometimes feels like a copy of iOS. For example, the quick settings are very similar. Even the music section and widgets looks identical. The same goes for the notifications. Xiaomi is based on Android, but it looks more like iOS than Android in my humble opinion. The lock screen looks slightly different though. The music player, for example, is on top, while on the iPhone, it is on the bottom of the screen. Even opening and closing applications on the Xiaomi with HyperOS is almost identical to iOS, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Xiaomi development team was tasked with replicating iOS. That's not necessarily a bad thing, as Eliot once wrote, immature poets imitate, mature poets steal. I also decided to go out for some groceries and take some night photos. In low light conditions like this one, this larger sensor on the Xiaomi helps, but there are so many factors in taking a picture that I cannot say for certain that the 1-inch sensor on the Xiaomi has much better processing than the iPhone. Let's also check the microphone quality and also the selfie camera. The left side, I'm now talking on the Xiaomi 15 Ultra. We are checking the microphone on the Xiaomi 15 Ultra. And on the right side, we are checking the iPhone 16 Pro Max. And we are checking the microphone on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. It's quite cold here. I thought spring is here, but it's not. For video, the Xiaomi is a bit more exposed compared to the iPhone. It also seems to me that the Xiaomi has better quality, less noise, and a sharper video overall. Xiaomi also handles lens flare at night better. On the iPhone, you usually encounter these ugly green dots everywhere when there are lights in the scene. That said, on the telephoto lens, I find the Xiaomi's choice of shutter speed very questionable, which often results in a blurry image and lights being spread in the picture. By the time I got back home, the Xiaomi had 57% battery left, while the iPhone had 49% battery left. I put both phones on standby overnight. When I turned them on after around 10 hours, the Xiaomi had 55% battery left, while the iPhone had 45%. So the larger battery capacity on the Xiaomi is making a difference. My verdict is that the Xiaomi is a great phone, especially for photography, but you should keep in mind that you won't get a point and shoot experience. You will have to do a bit of processing after taking a photo from time to time. The battery life is also great and the overall experience is solid. The iPhone is better for videos, gives you more options, and its photos are more consistent, but you won't get the same level of detail in your photos compared to the Xiaomi. In the end, both phones are a solid choice, and that's what you expect when paying blood money for your phone. If you enjoyed this video, you can watch the comparison of the Xiaomi 15 Ultra versus the S25 Ultra next. Thanks for tuning in to TechMo, and I will see you in the next one.